All right. Let's see who's here first. Chatima Taylor was the first one in. There we go. Fantastic. We'll get cooking in just a minute. So while we're bantering here and stalling for time for the rest of everybody else to get here, we're a couple minutes early. Welcome to everybody. So the question of the day is, where are you from? So that's the first thing. Pop that into the, we need to put the chats to work for everybody. Let me do that real quick. My apologies. There we go. I'm from Woodstock, Maryland. Where are you out of, Jeff?
Naperville, Illinois.
Where is that in reference to Chicago?
West suburbs of Chicago.
Ah, cool. We got David from Tucson. He's the farthest away so far. We had somebody from Singapore the other day.
Wow.
Palo Alto, beat you out, David. There you go. Ren's from Palo Alto, California. There you go. It is a drive. So yeah, let us know where you're from. Always like to see who's the farthest away, right, Matt? You got Lakewood,
Absolutely.
Colorado. Corey.
I don't think that I'm going to be in the runnings there. I hail from Aberdeen, Maryland, which is the home of Cal Ripken Jr.
Ah, that would be
Baltimore
true.
Orioles star, for those that don't know, for years.
That's right. We got a good team coming in, I think. I'm hoping. Matt.
I hope so. Hey, I like the ace that we picked up, but it wasn't good with Bradish and Means not developing as well in rehab. So we'll see.
We'll see what happens. All right. So where are you from? We got Lakewood. We got Palo Alto. That's the farthest. Ren's the farthest out in Palo Alto, California. So let us know where you're from. I'm from Woodstock, Maryland, and I know Matt. Where are you? Owings Mills? Where are you?
I just said Aberdeen, Maryland.
Aberdeen. I'm sorry, dude.
Come on.
I wasn't paying attention to you.
I don't blame you.
All right, we'll get started in just a minute. Always interested in what's happening in the AI world. If you have any questions, you can pop it in there as well into the chat. We love to have the communication. We have a bunch of things for people that came in earlier. Corey was talking. I have your quote, Corey, actually. I think it's you, Corey Baxter. I asked the question of, please address, this during the conversation. And Corey says, I don't know what I don't know. So there you go. Glad you're here, Corey.
Always a good one.
So I love that answer. We'll give everybody a couple minutes to pop in here because I know folks are just getting from different places. We have I think we have like 70 folks that are registered. So we do have folks that do have an immediate need too. So if you have immediate need, please, we'll ask that question a little bit later. There's a couple folks for you. You had me worried. I didn't remember what I said. That's what Corey says. Yeah, but yep, that is right. I love it. Thanks, man. Thanks for being willing to throw yourself out like that. Appreciate it. Love it. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get cooking, and this is being recorded, so everybody can catch up with this if they need to. We have a lot of interest in this, guys. Appreciate you being here, Jeff and Matt from Divine. We're going to be introducing them in just a second, but we want to welcome everybody that has registered for this. We've done a couple of different AI conversations, right, Jeff?
Absolutely.
And we do appreciate you being here. And for those of you who are not aware, this is not affiliated with GSA or any other agency. They gave it to this to us so that you, as participants and government personnel, can know that it's not an indication or endorsement to purchase from any vendor. That way you can participate like Corey. So if you'd love to participate, we love that. If it's something that you really need from us, just please raise your hand, pop it in the Q&A if you would. We have a lot of feedback from coming in. Josh from State says you can walk away. Best briefing ever. Hear this, Matt? Best briefing ever. We're going to walk away with enough information to create a path towards integrating AI to our portfolio. That's the whole idea, right, Jeff?
I hope so.
Hope so. That's the idea. Brian, learn more about AI. Always interesting. That is a fact. Charles, implementing AI tools in the action stage and not another let's talk about it stage. Charles is ready to roll. All right, Jerry, I hear that AI is not taking any jobs from federal employees. That's a concern, right?
Absolutely. Right.
And Mary from the
promise
VA,
that.
I learned how AI will hopefully enhance my communication with veteran population I serve. That's great. And Dave and Clarence, they just learned something. It'd be the best briefing ever. They just learned anything. And Matt Sweet has somebody that's coming in as an AI. They got an AI coming in for you on camera. Matt. All right, so Dave, so we got that. Faye, introduce what ML algorithms are available. What does that mean? Do we know what that means, Jeff? Do we need to talk to Faye?
Well, I don't know.
Machine learning. I guess that's machine learning, right?
In a little bit, but yeah, that's a little technical, but we'll certainly talk about how it can be used, I think, which is probably maybe the gist there. So,
Like, awesome. You going to do a live demo of the most advanced AI?
certainly.
All right, love that. So here's some more. Library documentation, document dissemination. Boy, that's a detailed one. William probably going to take that one offline. Concrete federal examples that relate to the proposed IDP and define terms like predictive analytics versus AI. That's awesome. Can you do a little bit of that for us, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Got a slide about definition of terms that I almost took out, but decided to leave in. So
there you go. That was just for you, Tina. Linda from HHS, show how AI is being used or planned to be used within HHS. Well, I'm not sure we have that yet, but maybe you can pull some out of that for that. Mo, some real use cases. Yes. And Crystal, someone can cover AI privacy impact assessments. Big deal. Privacy is big deal, right, Jeff?
Absolutely. Talk about privacy. That's one of the most important things in terms of assessments of that, not specifically, but we'll definitely cover AI privacy and why that's important.
I agree with that. There were professional development hours awarded. Hey, Jonathan, and somebody else was asking for that, by the way, for CEUs from Sarah from the VA. Just let us know and we'll get you a certificate for that. How about that? Best briefing ever. There you go. And do AI programs spy on users? Ooh, I think we got some talking to do about that. All right, here, please address.
When?
What's that?
I said yes and no is the answer to that question. We'll talk about when and which. So.
All right, fantastic. So Karen from Treasury, can you explain how to use AI development and division dashboards? Karen, if you're here, let me see if Karen's here because I have a question about that. She's not here yet. So we'll reach out to you. If you're here, raise your hand and want to know that. Frank, opportunities for training and research geared towards musculoskeletal care. Ooh, that's getting detailed there, Frank. I don't know if we're going to go to musculoskeletal things. Are we, Jeff?
Probably not to that level of detail. That's a specific use case, but we'll talk about how you could get to that, or kind of the couple steps in the journey towards something like that. So.
And we can always continue the conversation. In fact, Frank, you'll have the ability to do that at the end. Well, you can ask for that, and we'll talk. I'm sure, Jeff, you'd love to dive into musculoskeletal care. Fang, data streamline and dashboard collection is another one. Government use of AI. Okay. Andrea, if it's possible to create Power BI reports and SQL coding automation, that's one of the things you can do with AI, right? Is coding?
Yeah, absolutely. To an extent, certainly.
And that is easier for even a beginning analyst to write. I love that idea, Andrea. That's great. Mayor from State, non-proliferation issues. That's one of the biggest things that people are concerned. How is this going to be proliferated in our lives? All right. Charles from VA, using AI tools to reduce the redundancy of entering the same information into multiple of silo-type pet programs. Charles is ready to go. He's the same one I think they've said, hey, let's stop talking about it. Let's start doing stuff, right, Charles? And Corey, as I promised, I don't know what I don't know. I love it. So thank you. We'll do our best to do those, right, Jeff?
We will try to cover a lot of that and certainly some of the generals, maybe not every one of the specifics, but we'll do what we can. And like you said, we can circle back more if needed.
I love it. So we are going to ask you this. Why in the world did you decide to come here? Are you in the hot seat for implementing the AI in your agency? You're trying to get your head around it? I think we're all trying to do that. So that's probably for everybody. You can pick as many as you want, by the way. Do you want to be part of the AI dialogue, or did your boss make you come here to listen to Jeff? That's the question. So while you're doing that, Matt, give us an overview of Divine and how you guys got started and what you guys are all about.
Sure. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for attending. I know your time is valuable and you're all busy, so we really do appreciate you turning up here. So Divine is a mature 8A firm, IT consulting and professional services firm. We were founded over 20 years ago. I think we're at 21 now. We've actually built ourselves up in the commercial realm, doing high-end IT services such as enterprise architecture, custom software development, cloud migration, Salesforce, and low-code, no-code design implementation, and also cybersecurity, a little bit of AI ML that Jeff is expanding rapidly, and staffing solutions as well. So while we're really good at what we do, we're kind of new to the federal government space. So we are supporting the Department of Energy and Social Security Administration with a couple of IT services contracts. But really what separates Divine, we are a faith-based firm. As you can see, the Divine, the IHN in Divine is capitalized and it stands for in his name. And what differentiates us is we have a culture of grace here in pursuit of excellence, where no matter what, we're going to make sure that the job is done correctly, no matter the cost to us. We just want to make sure our customers are satisfied, because it always comes down to our core purpose of positively impacting lives one interaction at a time. And I guess that all comes down to our life purpose is doing good to others. So that's about all I have. And if you guys have any questions, at all after this, please reach out to myself or Jeff. Our contact information will be on the final slide. And again, I thank you all for your time.
Appreciate it, Matt. And you were ready to go. If you want to start sharing out, Jeff, I'm going to pop your presentation right here. If you guys want to download that, you can. You good to go? There we go.
I mean, you can see my screen, and then
It is there.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Right. So jumping right on in here. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Appreciate that. I won't go into detail about myself much, other than I lead our cloud solutions and data and AI practice at Divine Integration for the last 3+ years. I've been in consulting and technology and programming development and data and AI for my whole career, which is 3+ decades. So I'm excited to kind of show you what we've got to talk about here today. So a quick look at our agenda for the discussion today. I imagine you all are, quite interested in the latest on how the government is approaching artificial intelligence. So we'll start with a quick recap of some of the recent developments regarding AI in government. Then we'll get into the role of data in general, especially in terms of, related strategy considerations. Data is really important these days. Having a strategy around that is very important. We'll get into some of that. We'll talk about what a data platform is and how a data platform can enable and empower new ways of tapping into the insights and the intelligence lurking within, data, documents, all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about one of the major vendors in this space a bit more than the rest, that's Microsoft, and show how some of their offerings can form the foundation of what we're talking about, and how others can add on to that as well. And finally, we'll give you some final thoughts about what this all might mean and what you can do with it going forward. So a lot of ground to cover. I'm going to be going pretty quickly here. So strap in and hope you enjoy the ride.
Yep. And I'll be watching the chat. And if you'd like to get involved with the communications, Jeff doesn't mind interruptions, right, Jeff?
Really?
Love it.
All right. So for starters, we'll talk about some of the most noteworthy recent developments is the executive order on safe, secure, and trustworthy artificial intelligence, which came out in October. It tries to establish a government-wide effort to guide responsible artificial intelligence development and deployment through federal agency leadership, regulation of industry, and engagement with international partners. And it directs over 50 federal entities to engage in more than 100 specific actions to implement the guidance across 8 overarching policy areas, which we've listed on this slide. And also the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, has published some useful guidance as well. So this is some general stuff, right? And this is just a couple of resources that are, hopefully useful. I think this is a thing that if you have any interest or any, possibility of using AI, within your agencies, I certainly would, expect you'd want to be aware of this and how it impacts you and your agencies and organizations. Of course, that's only the start, and the White House and many other individual agencies have published a lot more information and guidance on artificial intelligence and other related considerations in general, right? Here's a couple of examples that will be very relevant to those of you here today from HHS and VA. The HHS site in particular contains a lot of great information. I think they're one of the first agencies, I might be mistaken, but I haven't seen many chief AI officers anywhere yet. So they're trying to take some lead there. And again, some great information on strategy, use cases, and links to lots of other good stuff as well. So check that out. The Office of Research and Development site also has a lot of relevant links and information about policies specifically and some of those sorts of things. So again, I'd suggest you check these out, no matter who you are, where you're from, and of course, obviously, pay attention to your own agency specifics and sites that detail how your agency or organization might be handling this stuff specifically. In this presentation, kind of going forward, we'll take a closer look at some of the possibilities that AI can bring to to your everyday work, and the platforms, technologies, and vendors that can make this safe and secure and a reality. But of course, under the guidance and within the rules and regulations, for government agencies and employees as well. Be sure to keep that in mind.
Love it. Hey, can we ask folks what their interaction with some of the more personally prevalent ones? You want to launch that and see what they have to say?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so we're going to do that. So we have ChatGPT, GPT-3, and OpenAI are a couple of different frameworks that are out there. You're going to dive into some more agency-specific stuff, though, right, Jeff?
Not any more than that, other than use cases that might be applicable for different kinds of agencies.
Okay.
But we're not going to get much more specific in terms of actual agencies or specifics at this point.
And there's a lot of folks that are kind of hoping that AI for like the coding that was the question that was asked earlier, where you might not have the depth and breadth of a coder, but you can use AI to help with that. So it's interesting. Just to see where everybody is. So there's a few folks that use it regularly. Some have tried it some, and most have heard of it but never tried it. So that's awesome that they're here to check it out, right? That's the whole idea.
Absolutely, yeah.
Love it.
Really, I mean, we're still kind of in the foundational stages here, right? So even understanding what this stuff is or what its capabilities are is, not obvious, or, not everybody's there yet. So by all means, what we're going to try to kind of try to come away with here today is, here's some ways you could start to try some of this stuff out and get a feel for it. Here's what to do and what not to do at a high level. But obviously there's a ton more possibilities, and, more we can drill down into some amazing possibilities and capabilities here. But, once you get beyond kind of the more simple general stuff, it gets pretty specific pretty quickly, and depends a lot on what kinds of information you have to work with and what kinds of questions you're trying to answer and things like that. So we'll keep it, kind of general today, but hopefully give everybody some exposure to go try it out. And then that tends to lead to conversations around, well, gosh, this is cool, but could we do this? And then we can drill into yes, but how do you get there and what's needed to make that happen? So
awesome. Well, thanks for responding to that. Let's show what it is there, Jeff. You can see it.
Yeah.
13% use it regularly. That's awesome. If you guys want to pop up and say, hey, you're here, we'd love to hear how you're using it, right, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's looking like we're getting close to half people that have at least tried it, right? And
yeah,
quite a bit that have used it all the time. So I think that's probably, skewing even from the last time we did this, or certainly last year, where, quite a few people less people had even tried it, let alone we're using it every day. So
love it.
Stuff.
Fantastic. Carry on, my good man.
So moving along here, So, just I've kind of alluded a little bit to, how the evolution or the conversation around AI and data is evolving, right? It's relatively new. We've really only been talking about it much for the last couple of years because as recently as 2022, it was still mostly a future thing, wasn't really, top of mind, wasn't being used regularly in business or, much outside of, research and development or, higher education, other things like that. So that all changed near the end of 2022. And, when ChatGPT was publicly released initially, I think it was around October or so of 2022. And of course, it exploded into the conversation, and all of 2023 was about people trying to understand, what it was, what it meant, what it could do. And we, at Divine and, previous Gov brief sessions we did, Dave, we talked about ChatGPT and, what it could do, how cool it is, and how it starts to open the doors to some really interesting, conversations and possibilities and, things you can do with it.
And it's
Right?
always right? Chat GPT is always right.
Well, I mean, a lot of the conversation was how no, it's not right. And
That's exactly right.
the word hallucination kind of came up quite a bit because that's what you call it when the AI engine starts going down some path or wandering off into making stuff up that it doesn't really know what it's talking about. It's just stringing words together, in statistically useful ways, but it really doesn't know what it's talking about. So sometimes it wanders off into the wilderness and starts making crap up. And so we call that hallucinations, right? So when does that happen? How to prevent it from happening or how to make it happen more in some cases was quite a bit of what the conversation was about, throughout all of 2023 and, continues now. But what's new and what we're pivoting to talking about more and what, I think others are talking about more as well is, okay, ChatGPT is great and all that's, an interesting sort of thing. But when you understand that it's public, meaning it will, capture what you're putting into it and potentially save that and retain that and maybe even use it to train the AI to be smarter next time around. So it was not private, right? It very much could snoop on you to answer one of the questions from the, earlier questions, specifically, right? ChatGPT absolutely does snoop on you. And it says, it'll tell you that, don't expect that we won't capture your inputs and, potentially use it. So that meant that in order to play by the rules and be, a good steward of our company data and things like that, you cannot and should not put private information or any proprietary, confidential questions, prompts, answers, information, anything, because as soon as you do, it's pretty much as good as broadcasting it for all intents and purposes. So it's cool, but limited in what you can do when you can't you can't ask it whatever you want to, and you can't be sure it's not saving what you're asking and things like that. So the evolution in this year's conversation is going to be much more about privatizing that, right? So how can you take alternative platforms or even, spend money with OpenAI or whatever to get an environment where it's private, meaning you can trust that the engine isn't going to capture what you're putting in and all that kind of stuff. And that you can, ask it questions and even have it, be able to answer from your own private internal data and information and things like that. And that's called private artificial intelligence, or more specifically, private generative artificial intelligence. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how you get there or what you need to do that. And that's what we mean by intelligent data platform. So we'll describe more of that going forward, but, just understand that, 2 years ago, we weren't talking about AI at all. For the last year, we were talking about public AI primarily and the good and the bad about that. And then this year and going forward, it's going to be much more about how do you get into the private, secure, kinds of AI where you've got, more power, more capability, and more trust and security as well. So, it's hard to, with that in mind, and enabling and empowering all that, of course, is data, right? And it's hard to overstate how important data is, or frankly, how quickly it's growing, right? I thought about trying to present some statistics that talk about how quickly data is growing, but the point is it's hard to conceptualize how much data we're generating every second of every day at this point. But it's a lot, and it's of all kinds and shapes and sizes and formats and things like that. there's a nearly unlimited number of uses for this data, but for business and government purposes, it's helpful to consider, some of the most common impactful ones, which this list is trying to represent, right? I think you can probably imagine ways in which the intelligent use of data could be game changing in each and every one of these areas all by itself, right? But you put more of them together and you consider the speed and rate of growth, exponential growth of the amount of data we're capturing, and it becomes more important than ever to understand all this, recognize all this, but also start to, think about a strategy for dealing with all this and managing all this, right? So when I say that, you need a data strategy, right, to try to deal with all this, what does that mean? Well, what we mean pretty specifically, is, and for our purposes here today, a data strategy is a comprehensive plan that outlines how an organization collects, manages, shares, and utilizes its data, right? And saves, protects is all kind of, inherent in that. And it's also, of course, an ever more essential part of a company's broader strategy in general, and is integral to, having a strategy is integral for leveraging your data and really, getting the most out of it, and especially turning it into competitive advantages or, the means by which you can streamline and transform in more impactful ways. The blocks at the bottom of this slide represent, many of the areas that must be considered when you're developing a data strategy. I think this is fairly comprehensive. I won't promise it covers every base, and some may be more than others in different scenarios or different kinds of organizations, but certainly they're all useful and important to varying degrees across all kinds of organizations. And many of them have a lot, you peel the layers of the onion there, and there's a lot within some of those as well. What happens when you don't have a good data strategy? If you don't take the time, to kind of give some thought to this and maybe try to mature and improve and evolve how you do handle data going forward, suffice it to say, lots of bad things can happen, from not being able to access and get at the data, to not being sure it's correct and accurate and consistent, to not, leveraging it effectively, right? And using it to optimize and innovate and grow and to your advantage, instead of, deferring that advantage to others that might be doing a better job of that sort of stuff. And of course, not utilizing data well can be, frustrating and annoying and cause friction between people for each, people doing their own jobs, or certainly between agencies, organizations trying to work together and collaborate in different ways. Errors, omissions, liability in general, making mistakes, or, again, inaccurate data causes all kinds of problems. And at the end of the day, if you don't manage it well and keep it safe and secure, there's much higher chance of loss or breach or other negative things happen. So,
And you
short
mentioned
list, there's a lot within this, but it's really important, right?
Yep, and you talk about the risk of errors and things like that, and that goes to, it seems some of the folks were talking about libraries on the way, some of the questions originally, and having that library be accurate and complete is really important, as complete as you can make it, right? Because the whole idea is you're going to keep adding things to that library and making sure that it's sound, and then your answers, the AI is going to use that library, right? That's how that works.
Yeah, that's the gist there, right? Is it can start, and we'll talk in the next couple of slides about how that can happen. But the gist, you take your data, understand your data, put it in a safe place where it is accessible and available. And then now, not only can people locate it and find it directly more easily and more quickly, but you can start to leverage it and start to, tap and mine all that data for analytics and predictions and artificial intelligence and machine learning and all these other great things, right? But if you don't have a strategy and don't have a good way to do all that, then those other things get much harder, if not impossible.
Love it. And the anonymous attendee, I don't think you're on video. Only the panelists are on video, and you don't have to worry about muting unless I unmute you. So there you go. I did that.
Yeah, cool. So once you have a data strategy, right, how do you go ahead and implement that, or what's needed to realize that strategy and that, vision for how to leverage and manage your data? Well, that's kind of what we call a data platform, or another way to say it is data platform is a way to describe how you manage your data, right? So basically, specifically, it's the foundation, fundamentally for how you implement your data strategy. And it's the basis and the way and the place in many cases that you capture, collect, store, organize, utilize, protect, and do whatever else you're going to do with your data. And of course, just like in the creation of a data strategy, the same areas of consideration are in play as you implement and build out your data platform. So collection, storage, governance, integration, analysis, use, all these things, again, kind of relate end to end to how you manage and deal with your data. And of course, in some ways, yeah, it is just kind of a fancy term, but it's a useful one, right? Every organization has a data platform, even if it's just a bunch of paper documents in file cabinets. That's not a very good data platform. It's definitely not a modern digital data platform, and it's much harder to do all these other things, but yeah, sure it is, right? USB drives, hard drives, servers in the closet, your own local hard drives are all part of a data platform, but not a very good one, not a very mature, capable, manageable, secure, and intelligent one at the end of the day, right? So, and the other thing, and for our purposes here today, one of the more important things that a data platform is the means by which you can utilize AI within your organization in a private, secure, and effective way, right? So it's the basically the foundation or the means by which you enable all the other things we're going to talk about here today, including, advanced analytics, predictive analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all that kind of stuff, right? So what do I mean by all that? Before we go further, here's the obligatory definition of terms slide that I think somebody actually asked for, which is awesome, right? So artificial intelligence, and I'll go quickly. I think, people probably know most of this. And again, these slides will be available after the show. So, I won't read them in detail or even leave them up long enough for you all to read them in detail. But, just to give you the gist, AI is the widest, broadest term here for the most part, covering everything related to the notion of mimicking human cognition in some way, shape, or form. Of course, we don't actually mean intelligent, and even what is intelligence conceptually is a conversation, right? But what we mean in this case, in this context, is that it includes things like knowledge modeling, symbolic reasoning, expert inference systems, and other things like that, that are simple approaches for computers to solving problems based on trying to encode human knowledge in ways that computers can understand and use, right? Next level is machine learning. So that's a subset of AI in general, which has to do with taking sets of data and using them to train a model, if you will. So a model that actually uses artificial neurons, and things like that, and how it implements this. But basically, it learns from the data and creates a model that best represents the data based on what the data is and what it looks like and kind of how you train the model, right? And then, of course, deep learning is a subset of machine learning that is even narrower, and it typically applies to complex learning models that have many, many parameters, up to, thousands or millions of parameters that are trained on huge amounts of data that can create very complex, very powerful, and very useful models. And that's basically what most of the modern stuff we're talking about: ChatGPT, generative AI, large language models, all these kinds of things are, forms of deep learning algorithms within machine learning, within artificial intelligence. So hopefully that kind of gives a little bit of a foundation of the terms here. Basically, the concepts are taking data, turning it into useful knowledge, and a computer model that can be used to make sense of the data and do other things that weren't originally included in the data, basically. So now we hopefully laid a foundation kind of for what it is that we're talking about, both AI and kind of in government in general. Let's dig a little further into the hype and some of the specific use cases, right? This slide shows a number, basically a list of some of the most common use cases we see in the real world these days. Some of these do require non-trivial investments in AI tools and solutions in order to get benefits. So, to be most effective, some of these would depend on utilizing internal proprietary confidential information in the AI models, right? But some of these aren't that, or at least some aspects or use cases of these things, you don't need all that, and the tools that you can access for free or that we'll show you here today, you can get pretty far and do quite a bit of cool things within these use cases, right? Of course, creating specific models and more involved solutions with specific data can do even cooler things. But even within this list, I'd expect everyone in the audience here to find at least a couple items on this list where you would see the potential value in addressing real needs and streamlining repetitive everyday tasks with AI-based solutions that you can either use today or will be able to get access to, soon here, and we'll talk about that, more specifically in a second too.
And I think that goes to one of the questions that was asked earlier by Charles is reducing the redundancy of doing that input and just managing the data better, right? So
absolutely, right. And what AI is the best at in general is doing repetitive tasks that people hate to do, and aren't as good at them because we get mistakes when we make mistakes when we get bored or when it's too repetitive in lots of cases. So taking away that grunt work, that nobody wants to do or that people don't do as well as computers, and the theory is, and back to how do we not replace jobs, but enable people to be more productive or to do different and more value added things becomes, how can we use, how we get rid of the everyday, silly tasks that people shouldn't do and leave more space and give more tools and capabilities so we can do the more important, the higher value, the more creative, the more, human tasks, I guess, is the way to think about it, right?
and there's certain things that AI is never going to be able to do, just like what you're doing right now, what we're doing, communicating back and forth. And yes, we can ask questions and things, but two human beings can do things that AI is never going to be able to do.
Absolutely, right. And human judgment, it has flaws, no doubt, and there are some things that computers can do better than people, but creativity and really understanding what it is we're talking about and imagining what else, I think, is the things where hopefully that's the realm of people and forever will be. But kind of speaking to a point here, this list is a little bit more both kind of not as mature, right? But heavy investments in a lot of these things and more to come. And the last one in red is known as general artificial intelligence, or GAI. And unlike every other item on both of these slides, which are focused on specific challenges and certain kinds of problems, general artificial intelligence is meant to create machines that are smart enough to solve many different kinds of problems, right? More like humans. And this is considered the holy grail of AI, and its achievement will probably be among the most significant inflection points in human history. And this is what AI usually refers to in movies and works of science fiction, from 2001: A Space Odyssey to Terminator, RoboCop, The Matrix, Ex Machina, The Latest Mission Possible, and then countless other movies every day, right? So that's hopefully there's time to come and time for us to get smarter legislatively, ethically, morally, all that kind of stuff. Current estimates for when we will achieve or when we'll start to get close to general artificial intelligence is possibly as soon as 2030, although that's less likely, but by 2050, right, we will almost certainly have both the computing capacity and power and the algorithms and data stockpiles to make that happen. So it'll get wild for sure, but hopefully not so fast that our heads are left entirely spinning. And again, we keep it on the positive side, which segues into our next thing here, which is trustworthy, responsible AI. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. A lot of what you're going to read in the documentation and the government guidance and the White House AI, materials that they've been publishing circle back to variations of trustworthy, responsible, beneficial, right? These are some of the terms by which we mean AI that is helpful, not harmful, and works with us, not against us, and protects us from ourselves and itself and everything else, right? So valid, reliable, safe, secure, resilient, accountable, transparent, explainable, interpretable, private and fair and unbiased, right, is NIST's definition, right? And last year and last round of my presentations, I showed several variations of this, which all made the case is that there's different ways to look at this, but it's basically these are the right things to be thinking about. And, be mindful as users that, AI isn't necessarily automatically going to be trustworthy and responsible. So it's important to understand and recognize, when you shouldn't be sharing private information with it and when you can, and, how to deal with and what to do with the results it gives you back and all that kind of stuff, right? So, and of course, the law is still in the legislation around all this in general is evolving and hopefully more to come soon. But it isn't there yet. So, we do need to be careful and do need to give a little thought to how we use this kind of technology today. And again, do pay attention to the guidance and, rules and capabilities and tools that your agencies make available to you. So how do we get there, right? And, I'm going to blow through the next couple of slides pretty quickly here. This is kind of, fundamental high level stuff, but just kind of wanted to give you a sense for how, we get there. I do want to save time to kind of show you some cool things about what this can enable. So the journey is, again, and this mirrors a little bit the last couple of years that I was talking about. So from not using AI at all, no capabilities, not really getting any value out of it, not putting anything into it. So no risk either, but not getting anything out of it, right? I think that's where most organizations and probably almost all government agencies are at this point, or, again, starting to adopt and embrace just gently and slowly. And that's for the half of you that answered, you've never used this stuff or even heard of it before. That's kind of where you're at, which is okay, right? But, you probably want to hop on the trail here at some point and start the yellow brick road at the beginning. And the way to do that is public AI, right? So, ChatGPT, some of these other things that are freely available, you can go try them out, sometimes even without giving them an email address. But in some cases, you have to at least give them your email address, and then they'll let you use their capabilities for free to an extent. Or you start to pay a little bit, and now you can use it more, right? But again, public AI, you get some value, some benefit, but this is also where there is the most risk, right? And not as much value. You're not really getting any value from your own private confidential data because you shouldn't be using it with private AI because you are losing security, confidentiality, and privacy when you do that, right? So you can ask it general questions, non-specific, but nothing super valuable. And then so kind of the evolution from there, as I've already alluded to, is private AI. So that same concept, but now in, same kinds of powerful engines and large language models and generative AI capabilities for both words and images, and nowadays even getting into video. So the most value here from this private AI, the most benefits, the most capabilities, the most cool things you can do, the fewest risks, I would say, not zero risk. There's always risk here. But with private AI, at least, the platform and the engine and the tools and the solutions are, trying to and doing all they can to protect and secure your data, so you can get the most out of it. And it's also because of that is why you get the most value out of this, is because it can tap into your internal data and make use of the documents, the files, the knowledge about your organization and your environments and things that can really answer the most valuable questions at the end of the day as well.
And that goes to internal controls and how that data is updated, the back end, the library data that folks were asking about, right?
Absolutely, right. And that's what this slide kind of speaks to, actually, in a good segue, right? So how do you get there? Again, the journey is you start by, wondering what it's all about and getting to have some insights about what it is, how you can use it, and what you can and can't do with it, right? And from there, it's to strategy, what data do you have? And what data you have will define what kinds of solutions and intelligence you can get from your data, right? And then the platform is what will help you start to, leverage your data and mine and access and use your data in a secure, private, safe, transparent way, right? To enable access to that data. And so access to the data means people can start doing reports and start doing analytics and, everything from bringing it into Excel or Power BI or whatever, to doing cool reports and things like that. And of course, from there, it's on to more in-depth analysis. So data, aggregating your data or integrating your data starts to give you more capabilities to analyze it and drill into it in different ways, culminating ultimately in making it available to these kinds of artificial intelligence engines and machine learning capabilities to really start to unlock the kinds of amazing capabilities and potential solutions and use cases that some of the last couple of slides have been talking about. So lots of players and platforms doing this right now. Some are free, some cost money. Pretty much all the major players in this market space are pulling out all the stops. I should have Apple on here. I just realized Apple is missing. They just
Yeah, I just saw the news on
their
Yeah.
self-driving car to focus on generative AI, right? So everybody's all in on AI at this point, right? And lots of options and lots of different ways to put lots of different platforms and data platform tools and things like that can work, and you don't even have to choose one. You can cobble together composite solutions from more than one of these, often for free or for not much money, right? First, there's value in some more than others, I think. And from my perspective, and I think a lot of news and media perspectives as well, Microsoft is one of the leaders, if not, I won't claim it's the leader, but certainly top couple to top three, right? And we think that not only do they have some of the most comprehensive and integrated capabilities available right now, but they already have a lot of trust, a lot of security, a lot of cachet and brand trust and whatever else. Now, some people don't love Microsoft, don't trust Microsoft. Okay, fine. That's why there's other options, right? But the government, the federal government and many state and local governments have already invested in Microsoft Cloud. If you're using the Office applications at all, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, then to some extent you're already there. And a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is how new AI capabilities, specifically Microsoft Syntax and Microsoft Copilot, are manifesting within our current productivity tools and bringing some of these capabilities I'm talking about right there within the, alongside of the work and the tools that people are already using, right? So I'm going to focus on that a little bit. Again, some of these things you can do with other platforms, but nothing has quite this level of integration, especially if you do use those Office applications. And again, you're likely already there from a trust and ability to get into some of these sorts of things, even within your government agencies. So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit, and I'll answer the question about can you use this in government cloud and when in just a moment. But let's do a little bit of quickie demonstrations here. So hopefully you can see my Microsoft Edge browser. Did this?
Yep, looks like it.
Cool. All right, cool. So for starters, Microsoft is introducing Copilot, which is its name, its brand for ChatGPT-like generative AI capabilities within Microsoft products. They're embedding this in Windows, they're embedding this in Microsoft Edge, they're embedding this in other things as well, in Bing search engine, right? So you can go right now to Bing search engine, which is where I'm at, and turn on the ChatGPT or the not ChatGPT, sorry, the Copilot right within Bing, and it gets you to the chat engine basically, right? In this case, eventually, a little slow. But so now here's Copilot right within Bing website, right? But even within the Edge browser itself, the Microsoft Edge browser, I've got a Copilot button over here, which will bring up a side window, which also embeds Copilot. Now, to an extent, to a degree, there's an overlap between these two things here, right? It's just different ways to get at the Copilot Microsoft search or Microsoft, AI engine behind the scenes. And this is similar to ChatGPT. If you ever have tried OpenAI's ChatGPT or other things like that, it's pretty similar, right? You go to a website, maybe you log in and you put in a prompt or ask it a question or, ask it what you want it to do. So for example, let's just put in a simple question here. What's important to know about artificial intelligence in the US federal government? And when I ask it that prompt, the Copilot engine goes to work and starts generating a response that tries to answer the question and talks about the executive order that I mentioned at the beginning of this, and AI talent that the government's looking to hire, and some other things like that, right? And so this is useful stuff. It's much quicker than trying to search for it all yourself on the internet. I wouldn't necessarily trust everything that it says as the 100% truth, and always approach this with a little bit of skepticism, because no guarantees there. It might not hallucinate or tell you something that's not 100% true, but it's a great start, and it's much quicker and easier than trying to search for it and put it all together yourself, right? But the other thing that, and where this is where we start to diverge from ChatGPT and other things, and that's the fact that it says in this case, my personal and company data are protected. Now that's because my company, Divine, and my login that I'm using here, we have Microsoft Office business professional licensing at least. And so that you can do this, you can use these tools and use, Copilot within Bing and Edge without that. But you won't have that level of protection and privacy. It will be like ChatGPT and other things, so be careful. When you do have, a license to Microsoft Office, then you get this thing where it gives you a private space, and it can protect your private and company data, and you can ask it questions, that you might otherwise not want to ask it, again, because of those privacy considerations. The other thing is because it does have access to private and company data and things like that, I can ask it questions that ChatGPT would never know, right? Like, I'm putting in, I hope you can see on the bottom corner here, who does Jeff Lanham report to within Divine Integration Incorporated? And when I ask it that question, it, I believe, is not going to tell me what I wanted. Public information, again, because this is the public version. So now, oops, shoot, that was the wrong button. So again, so in that particular interface, it is protecting your private information, but it is not tapping into proprietary information, right? However, if I have Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365, so this is a brand new product that's recently been released to general availability, and this has an extra fee associated with it. This costs $30 a month per user, but what it does is it gives me a ton of additional capabilities within Office. In this case, I'm in the Office Microsoft 365 web application. And not only that, but it can tap into information within my own organization. So if I try to ask it that question within here, oops, not here. If I say, tell me who I report to within Divine, now, if I did this right, it should be able to tap into, basically proprietary information, which includes information that Microsoft 365 itself has about the organizational structure of Divine, who reports to who my profile within Microsoft 365 says my direct manager is. And in this case, it's going to come back and say, Harold Manjaroon, who's the president, is who Jeff Lanham reports to within Divine, right? So the cool thing going on here is that it knows enough about Divine because of the information that the Microsoft Graph, which is the capability behind the scenes here, knows about Divine. So this can also be used, and I don't have a setup here, and I can't show you this right now, but it can also be used to search within and to aggregate and summarize data within your own proprietary content within things like SharePoint and OneDrive and Microsoft Teams and things like that. So with this Copilot from Microsoft 365 capability, not only does it have knowledge about what's going on within your environment and your organization in the Microsoft Cloud, but it also can tap into your content and materials and data information and documents and things that you stored within the Microsoft Cloud as well. Really cool stuff. Taking it even a little bit further than that, I'm running short of time. I'm going to show you the coolest thing, two cool things here first, right? So not only that, but this capability embeds Copilot within the Office applications themselves. So within Excel, for example, right, with this capability, I can type in a question or instruction to Excel to tell it to do something cool. Oops, that's the wrong one.
And Charles is saying he's not sure he's all in the self-driving aspect of AI. I think you're not alone, Charles.
Yeah, that's true. Self-driving cars are definitely iffy. So anyway, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tell it to add a column to table 1 with the title hello, right? So normally I would have to understand how tables work. I could go, right click and add columns and do all this stuff in Excel myself. But maybe I don't know that much about how Excel works, or I'm new, or I don't work with tables very often. And so I want to just add a column to my table, but I don't know how to do that. So I can tell Excel in English language words to create a column for me. And with a couple seconds, hopefully, it's going to go ahead and actually do that. And there's my new column within Excel that it just added. Now I can do something more sophisticated. I can tell it to put a formula in all these cells, or I can tell it to do, I can make my prompt more specific and tell it to do something within these new cells or do other things. But I think that's a really cool example of how it can automate, or it can help you do things in Excel, even if it's just tap into functionality that you don't know how to use within Excel very well. But of course, there's plenty of other cool things it can do besides just that.
And Andrew, that answers Andrew's question. Now, this is not quite the power of business intelligence or SQL coding, but it's the same kind of functionality that you just showed us with Excel, saying, hey, make this up for me. And it'll do it.
Right. And they have, Microsoft has not yet embedded this technology in Power BI or SQL Server directly yet, right? But you can use the engine and the Microsoft chat to generate, SQL code or Python code or lots of other different languages and things like that as well. So here I am in PowerPoint. Again, I pulled up the Copilot in PowerPoint, which says it can help you do things like create a presentation, or, turn a file into a presentation, or add a slide about. So I'm going to tell it to add a slide that summarizes the branches of the U.S. federal government, right? So maybe I was, putting together this slide deck. Now, honestly, I didn't use AI to do this slide deck, but I have used AI to do other slide decks.
Okay.
So it's interesting to see, taking the designer and some other cool new things that Microsoft has added here to the next level to say, make a slide for me about something. And when it's done working on it here in a minute, this slide's gonna, basically pop up here and show information that is put together about the branches of the federal government. So it's being a little slow at the moment. I'll give it another couple seconds here.
And if you have any questions, pop them in. We're going to get you guys out of here in just a minute.
I mean, it's got one more slide and then we're kind of done anyway. So yeah, if anybody has questions, start to give some thought to that, and let's circle back in a second here and see what it comes up with, so I don't waste people's time just too much.
So yeah, it's a wild ride, and it's really cool to see how companies like Microsoft that have things that you use every day and I use every day, that it pulls these. I didn't even know you could do that, Jeff. That's brand new.
It said it didn't work. Of course, I tried it earlier and it worked just fine, but let's try it again. Maybe it ran out of time.
But computers never make mistakes, Jeff. I don't get it.
Well, they do occasionally have an error, right? So somewhere in the cyber world, a bunch of computers are spinning in Microsoft land trying to generate an answer to this topic, but
yep.
Too bad I don't have the results, because it was really cool when I did it earlier.
So does anybody have any like real life examples of things that you've done in the agencies or wanted to try in the agencies, in your agency, that you're trying to assemble? That'd be great. I'm sure Jeff would love to hear that as well. And we can take that offline. We'll give the ability to do that in just a minute. In fact, I'm gonna this gets.
Oh, there's our slide, by the way.
There you go. There you go.
So it took a little longer than it should have, but it came out, it's not great. But if you generate this again, it'll come back with something that looks a little different, but kind of gives you the same sort of information. And you can, of course, make a more elaborate prompt that'll provide more useful data than that. But that's the gist of what it came back with. I did want to show that worked and show what I wanted, but
And that's real life daily things that we do, right? Presentations, spreadsheets, Word docs, and things
Absolutely,
like
right?
that.
I mean, and it won't give you a great answer, and not every time, but I use it for a good starting point, and then I take it, and turn it into what I need it to be. So,
And I think that's the
ways to
key.
kind of wrap it up real quickly here, we explored data platforms and intelligence a bit, and took a look at why they're important, and a little bit about how to get there, discuss some of the uses and the importance of being responsible, right? So what you can do from here, hopefully, is explore the concepts and the data platform and intelligence tools. The thing that I didn't say that I meant to, I glossed over this slide. Hold on. All right, whatever. It's being annoying, but anyway, so that Microsoft Copilot for Office 365 that I just showed you will be available in Government Community Cloud this summer. So you can't access it yet, but you should be able to soon for any of you that have Microsoft 365 in the Government Community Cloud. You'll be getting that soon. Anyway, between now and then, or once you do, I suggest you to explore some of those tools and see what they can do. Consider some of the cool use cases that you can do, and what above and beyond that. And of course, keep in mind both the guidance from your agencies and being responsible and ethical, whenever you're doing this kind of advanced and potentially scary new technology.
Love it, man.
All right, Dave.
So yeah, we love the fact that you're here. Let me do this. I'm going to ask this question. If you'd like to continue the conversation in your agency, there's a lot of information that Jeff has shared. You can reach out to Jeff directly. You can raise your hand. You can put something in the Q&A, and we can continue that conversation. I will say, just so you know, you'll get a recap tomorrow, which includes the link to the video if you want to share it with other of your colleagues, or you want to watch it over and over again for its entertainment value. So you can certainly do that. And Matt, I think you're the one that's going to be responsible for conducting and organizing one-on-one meetings for folks that want to address specific issues, right?
Absolutely. Yep. So just reach out to myself or Jeff. No matter what, if you have specific AI questions, it's going to get to Jeff anyway. So I look forward to hearing from anyone that needs help.
That's right. So there's a few people here that are asking for that. We'll make sure you have that, and we got it in. We got about a minute now. We can hang out for a couple more minutes if you like to. If there's additional information that you'd like to share or something you'd like to be able to see. But otherwise, reach out to Jeff. His information's right there, and same with Matt. And I really appreciate it, Jeff. I love the new things, right? There's always something new. And you wait till next week, there's going to be something new next week too, right?
It's rapidly moving. There's no doubt about that, Dave.
It isn't slowing down. And that's what's wild with the government organizations. We were talking with somebody from the Navy about this a couple of weeks ago. Dealing with AI in the Navy and the fact that they've been using AI for 50 years. So that was news to me.
Self-driving cars are questionable. I'm not so sure about self-driving submarines and whatever, but
I'm still not full bore. I'm with Charles on that one. I'm not a full bore on the whole self-driving thing.
Definitely encourage caution and awareness amongst all the awesome potentials.
And so, Charles, if you're the Charles that wants to get something done, make sure you reach out to Jeff, because he's a doer. And Ren, you're welcome for the information. I love it. I always love to hear what Jeff has to say. He's in the weeds with this stuff. He's down in the code. So it's really cool.
Trying to keep it real and fresh and up to date as the target moves rapidly, like we were just saying. So
that's a fact. All right. For the folks that are asking for contact, you will get that contact. I promise, right, Matt?
Absolutely.
You'll be getting it. And so otherwise, Jeff, great job again. Always great to see you.
Yeah,
Any last parting comments for everybody other than robots making robots? Well, that's just stupid. That's a quote.
I don't know. I've seen some pretty scary movies lately where that AI is trying to, take somebody's wife and stuff like that. So I'm like, I'm not ready for that either. I'm embracing and trying to understand all this, but, not too soon.
There you go. All right, man. Well, great job. We'll be in touch. There you go. Appreciate you guys joining us. Thanks so much.